"My body is too small, cowboy. I can't bear children," said Apache woman. He held her anyway. The sun had just begun its slow climb over the horizon, painting the dusty streets of the small frontier town in golden light. The town was quiet at this hour, with only the occasional creak of a wooden sign swinging in the morning breeze, and the distant sound of a wagon rolling down the uneven dirt road. In the midst of this peaceful morning, a young Apache woman made her way toward the town's small market. She moved with quiet grace, careful not to disturb the soft stirrings of the town waking up. Her name was Naeli, and she carried herself with a quiet dignity that had been shaped by a life of both hardship and resilience. Naeli's journey to the town was not an ordinary one. She had grown up in the wide-open plains with her family, learning the traditions and stories of her people from a very young age. From the moment she could walk, her mother taught her the importance of strength, patience, and understanding the world around her. Yet even with all the lessons and love she had received, Naeli felt the weight of her own limitations every day. She was small in stature, fragile in appearance, and she had long come to realize that her body would never allow her to carry a child.
In her culture, this was a heavy burden, and she had often felt the quiet, judgmental eyes of others wherever she went.
Still, she had learned to carry herself with quiet dignity, never letting sorrow completely show on her face. As Naeli approached the market, the first signs of town life began to appear. Merchants were lifting shutters, stretching out their wares on rough wooden tables. The smell of fresh bread, roasted coffee, and herbs filled the air. Children ran past, laughing and chasing one another while dogs barked and wagged their tails in excitement. Naeli paused for a moment, taking in the sounds and smells, allowing herself a brief sense of normalcy before the busy day ahead. She had learned to treasure these moments, the quiet joys of life that reminded her that there was beauty even in a world that sometimes seemed indifferent. It was at this moment that she first noticed him. He stood a few steps away, near the well at the center of the market square. A tall man, broad-shouldered and strong, with a weathered face that hinted at years of life on the open plains. His hat shaded his eyes from the sun, but there was something in the way he held himself that immediately drew Naeli's attention. He moved with a calm confidence, carrying a small bundle of supplies as he prepared to go about his business. There was a sense of purpose in his steps, yet he radiated an easy calm, as if the world's troubles could not weigh heavily upon him. The town's bustle seemed to bend around him, but he was unaware of the effect he had on those around him. Naeli had encountered many strangers in her life, travelers and wanderers who passed through her town on their way to somewhere else. Most paid little attention to the people they passed, their eyes scanning only for opportunity or convenience. But something about this man felt different. There was a gentleness in his demeanor, a quiet respect in the way he observed the world without judgment. She found herself pausing, almost unconsciously, to watch him as he moved among the townspeople. There was a subtle kindness in the way he nodded to a merchant, helping to adjust a fallen basket of fruit. It was a small gesture, almost insignificant, yet it spoke volumes about his character. For his part, the cowboy, his name was Luke, noticed Naeli as well. She moved with a grace that was striking, her eyes thoughtful and alert, as if she were taking in every detail of her surroundings. He could see a quiet strength in her, a determination that went beyond her delicate appearance. There was something about the way she carried herself that suggested a life of challenges, met with courage and resilience. He watched her for a moment, not out of mere curiosity, but because he felt a connection he could not immediately explain. A recognition of someone who had faced struggles and yet remained unbroken. Their first encounter came unexpectedly. Naeli was walking past a stall filled with fresh vegetables when a sudden commotion broke out nearby. A cart, loaded heavily with sacks of grain, had tipped over, sending its contents spilling onto the ground. The townspeople gasped and rushed forward, unsure of how to help. Luke was already moving, steadying the cart and carefully lifting the sacks to prevent further damage. Without thinking, Naeli stepped forward to assist, her hands quick and sure, moving in rhythm with his. Together they managed to right the cart and gather the scattered grain. In that brief moment of shared effort, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a recognition of competence, courage, and a willingness to act when it mattered most. After the commotion settled, Nayeli and Luke exchanged a brief glance. No words were needed. Their eyes spoke volumes. There was respect, yes, but also a subtle spark of curiosity, a quiet acknowledgement that their meeting was no ordinary chance encounter. Luke tipped his hat slightly, offering a small smile, and Nayeli responded with a nod, her lips curving into the faintest hint of a smile. It was simple, almost fleeting, yet it left a mark, a feeling that lingered long after the moment had passed. In the following days, Nayeli found herself noticing Luke more often. He became a quiet presence in the town, always helping where he could, never seeking attention yet leaving an impression on everyone he met. Nayeli admired his strength, not only in physical terms but in the way he treated others, with fairness, patience, and kindness. She found herself imagining conversations they might have, wondering what it would be like to share stories of their lives, to speak openly with someone who seemed genuinely capable of understanding her world. Meanwhile, Luke noticed Nayeli as well, observing her from afar with a quiet curiosity. He could see that she carried a weight upon her shoulders, a sorrow or worry that she kept carefully hidden. Yet beneath that weight there was an undeniable resilience, a spark of life that refused to be dimmed. He found himself drawn to her not just by her beauty or grace, but by the strength and complexity he sensed beneath the surface. There was a story in her eyes, one he longed to know, and he resolved quietly to earn her trust so that she might share it with him. As the days turned into weeks, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes it was in the market, sometimes along the dusty roads outside of town, and sometimes by chance at the well where the town drew its water. Each encounter was brief, polite, yet layered with meaning. Small gestures, a helping hand, a shared smile, a simple conversation about the weather built a foundation of trust. They began to learn about each other in subtle ways, noticing habits, listening to laughter, and quietly observing the reactions of those around them. Slowly an unspoken bond formed, delicate yet resilient, like a fragile plant growing through a crack in the stone. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, Nayeli found herself walking along the edge of the town. She paused by a small stream, watching the water ripple and shimmer in the fading light. Luke appeared beside her, seemingly out of nowhere, yet without surprise. They walked together in silence for a while, neither feeling the need to fill the air with words. There was comfort in the quiet, a sense that they could exist together without pretense or expectation. It was a moment of peace, of understanding, that hinted at the possibilities of what might grow between them. By the end of part 1, the story had established the foundation for something meaningful, a connection born not from necessity or convenience, but from respect, empathy, and quiet admiration. Nayeli and Luke had met in the ordinary world of a small town, yet their encounter carried the weight of something extraordinary. It was the beginning of a journey, one that would test their courage, challenge their fears, and ultimately reveal the depth of human resilience and love. For Nayeli, who had long carried the burden of her limitations, and for Luke, whose kindness was matched by his strength, this meeting was the first step toward a bond that neither time nor circumstance could easily break. As the days passed, Nayeli and Luke's encounters became more frequent, yet they remained cautious, each respecting the other's space. Nayeli had learned long ago that trust was not something given lightly, it was earned through actions, not words. Luke, in his quiet way, understood this too. He never rushed her, never asked questions she wasn't ready to answer, but he made himself present, a steady and reliable presence in her life. Their relationship, though unspoken, began to grow in subtle ways, like the gentle unfolding of a flower in spring. One afternoon, Nayeli found herself at the edge of the town, where the open plains stretched endlessly under the blue sky. She often came here to think, to breathe in the fresh air, and to remind herself of who she was beyond the expectations of society. She knelt by a small patch of wild flowers, brushing her fingers across their delicate petals. The wind whispered softly, carrying with it the distant calls of birds and the faint rustling of grass. In these moments she felt a rare sense of peace, a quiet space where the burdens of the world seemed to lift, for just a little while. Luke appeared at the edge of the field, his silhouette framed against the sky. He carried a small satchel which he set down carefully as he approached. Nayeli noticed him but did not speak immediately. She had come to recognize the difference between strangers and those who might touch the heart without trying. Luke knelt beside her, respecting the space between them, and said softly, "These flowers are beautiful. You have a good eye for them." Nayeli glanced up at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I like them because they grow quietly, without much attention. They don't ask for anything. They just are," she said. Luke nodded, understanding more than she realized. "There's a kind of strength in that," he said. "Sometimes the quietest things survive the hardest times." Her eyes lingered on him for a moment, studying the sincerity in his face. Luke had a way of speaking that felt gentle but firm, like the hand of someone who had seen life's challenges but refused to be hardened by them. Nayeli felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of curiosity and comfort that she had rarely experienced before. She wanted to share herself with him, but the fear of disappointment and judgment held her back. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Nayeli and Luke walked along the edge of the town together. The streets were quiet, lit by the soft glow of lanterns swinging gently in the breeze. They spoke of small things, weather, animals, the changing seasons. But beneath the words there was a deeper current, a growing awareness that each cared for the other more than either would admit. It was during one of these walks that Nayeli felt compelled to speak of her fear. Her voice was low, almost lost in the evening wind. Yet Luke heard every word. "Luke," she began, pausing to steady herself, "there is something I need to tell you. Something about me that may make you step away." Luke looked at her, his expression calm, waiting patiently for her to continue. There was no judgment, no impatience, just a quiet presence that encouraged her to speak. Nayeli took a deep breath. "I cannot have children," she said softly. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her own disappointment and fear. "My body, it is too small. I have tried to accept it, but it feels like I will never be complete. I worry that anyone who cares for me will leave when they realize this." Luke listened quietly, placing a reassuring hand gently on hers. "Nayeli," he said, his voice firm yet kind, "you are not defined by this. Your worth is not measured by what you can or cannot do. You are strong, brave, and kind. That is enough." Her eyes filled with tears, not just of sadness, but of relief. For the first time, someone had heard her completely and had not turned away. Luke did not speak again for a moment. He simply held her hand and let her emotions flow, showing that he was present, that he was not going anywhere. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened in ways that neither of them had expected. Luke continued to show kindness through actions, small gestures that spoke volumes. He would help Nayeli carry water from the well, bring her supplies she needed without being asked, and offer quiet words of encouragement when she faced her own self-doubt. Nayeli in turn began to trust him more, sharing stories of her childhood, her family, and the traditions she held dear. She found herself laughing more often, feeling lighter, and allowing herself to imagine a life that included someone who accepted her fully. There were moments of tension, of course. Nayeli sometimes pulled back, fearing that her limitations would eventually drive him away. She would become distant, retreating to the safety of her home or the open plains. But Luke never pushed her. Instead, he respected her need for space, giving her the freedom to return on her own terms. And each time she did, she found him waiting, patient and steady, offering no pressure, only understanding. One day, Nayeli invited Luke to join her on a walk through the plains beyond the town. She wanted to show him the place where she felt most at peace, where the vast sky and open land reminded her of her roots and her heritage. As they walked, she spoke of the stories her mother had told her, of the Apache traditions that shaped her understanding of the world. Luke listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest. He did not interrupt or dismiss her stories, but absorbed them, as if they were treasures he had been given. At one point they reached a small hill overlooking a valley, where wildflowers and tall grasses swayed in the wind. Nayeli stopped and took a deep breath, letting the view wash over her. "This is where I feel closest to my people," she said softly. "Even when life is hard, I come here and remember that I am part of something bigger, that I have strength, even when it feels like the world tells me I don't." Luke stood beside her, silent for a moment, then said, "You have strength beyond what most people can imagine. You're not alone. You don't have to carry it all by yourself." Nayeli looked at him, her heart swelling with a mix of hope and fear. Hope, because she had found someone who could see her for who she truly was. Fear, because she worried that even this connection might be fragile, threatened by the very limitations that had haunted her all her life. But as she gazed into Luke's steady eyes, she felt something shift. Perhaps she thought love and trust could exist even where fear had always lived. The days that followed were filled with quiet joys and shared experiences. They would meet in the early morning, sometimes helping a neighbor with chores or tending to animals, sometimes simply walking together in silence. Nayeli began to realize that Luke's presence made the world feel less heavy. She found herself imagining a future where she could face challenges without carrying them alone. And Luke, for his part, began to see that the woman he admired was more than her fears. She was a soul of remarkable resilience, courage, and beauty. Yet, despite the growing closeness, the unspoken fear lingered. Nayeli worried that one day Luke might see her limitations as a flaw, that he might leave when he realized that the life she could offer was different from what he might have imagined. She struggled with these thoughts, wrestling with them in quiet moments when she was alone. But Luke never gave her reason to doubt him. His actions, steady and kind, always reminded her that love was not about conditions or expectations. It was about presence, understanding, and acceptance. By the end of this part of their story, Nayeli and Luke had built a connection grounded in empathy and respect. Their relationship was no longer just a series of chance encounters. It had become a lifeline, a source of hope and courage for both of them. Nayeli was beginning to see that her worth was not measured by what she could or could not give, but by the strength, kindness, and authenticity she brought to the world. And Luke was learning that true connection required patience, understanding, and the courage to see beyond the surface. Part 2 concludes with a sense of deepening trust and emotional intimacy. Nayeli has shared her vulnerability, and Luke has met it with unwavering acceptance. Their journey together is just beginning, and while challenges remain, the foundation of their bond is strong, built on mutual respect, patience, and the quiet courage to embrace life as it is. It is a story of human resilience, of finding love where it is least expected, and of learning that true partnership is about heart, not circumstance. The coming weeks brought a rhythm to Nayeli and Luke's lives, a gentle pattern that was comforting in its simplicity. Every morning the town would awaken slowly, with merchants calling out greetings, children laughing as they ran through the streets, and the occasional neigh of a horse breaking the calm. Nayeli found herself looking forward to these days, knowing that Luke would be nearby, a steady presence in a world that had often felt uncertain and heavy. Yet even with this growing closeness, the shadow of her fear, her inability to bear children, still lingered in her thoughts, a quiet whisper of worry that she struggled to ignore. One afternoon, Luke invited Nayeli to accompany him on a journey to a small farm on the outskirts of town. He explained that he had been helping a friend repair fences and tend to the land, and he thought it might be nice for her to see the work he had been doing. Nayeli agreed, though part of her was hesitant. She was not accustomed to spending so much time with someone outside her family. But curiosity and a growing trust in Luke outweighed her fear. She found herself walking beside him, the soft dirt road beneath their boots, the plains stretching endlessly around them. As they walked, Luke spoke about the land, about the challenges and rewards of working with animals and crops. He shared stories of his childhood, of long days spent learning how to care for the animals, how to repair fences, and how to survive in a world that was often unforgiving. Nayeli listened, fascinated by the way he spoke, not boastfully, but with a quiet pride and a deep respect for the work he did. She realized that Luke's strength was not just physical, it was moral, emotional, and grounded in a clear understanding of responsibility and care. When they reached the farm, the sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows across the field. Luke introduced her to a few of the animals, a gentle mare with soft eyes, a pair of curious goats, and a small flock of chickens clucking near the barn. Nayeli smiled as she stroked the mare's mane, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. There was something therapeutic about being surrounded by life in its simplest forms, and she appreciated that Luke had brought her here, not just to show her his work, but to share a piece of his life. While they worked together repairing a small section of the fence, Nayeli noticed how naturally Luke guided her, giving gentle instructions when necessary but never assuming she could not handle a task. He respected her abilities, recognizing her strength without making her feel small. This balance, she realized, was rare. Many people she had encountered in the past either treated her with pity or dismissed her entirely. Luke's approach was different, patient, respectful, and encouraging. As the afternoon sun began to sink toward the horizon, they paused to rest under the shade of a large oak tree. Luke pulled out a small cloth and set a few simple provisions on it, a loaf of bread, some cheese, and a small jug of water. They ate quietly, the only sounds being the wind rustling through the leaves and the occasional distant call of a bird. Nayeli felt a warmth in her heart, a quiet happiness she had not allowed herself to feel in years. She looked at Luke, noticing the soft determination in his face, and felt a sense of gratitude that was almost overwhelming. It was during this quiet moment that Nayeli found herself speaking more freely than she had in weeks. She told Luke stories of her childhood, how she had learned to weave baskets from her mother, how she had spent hours watching the stars with her father, and how the plains had always felt like both a home and a teacher. Luke listened, genuinely interested, asking gentle questions that encouraged her to share more. Nayeli felt seen in a way she had rarely experienced, as if someone had finally noticed the person she was, beyond her fears and limitations. Eventually, their conversation turned back to the topic that Nayeli had long avoided, her inability to have children. She spoke softly, almost as if the words might shatter if spoken too loudly. "Luke," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "sometimes I worry that because I cannot have children, I will never be truly loved, that the people I care about will leave when they realize what I cannot give them." Luke reached out and gently took her hand in his eyes meeting hers with unwavering sincerity. "Nayeli," he said, his voice calm and steady, "love is not measured by what someone can give you. It is measured by the care, respect, and presence we share. What you carry in your heart, the kindness and strength you show every day, that is more important than anything else." Nayeli felt tears welling in her eyes. She had heard similar words before, but they had never come with the quiet strength and conviction that Luke offered. Here was someone who not only understood her words, but also accepted her entirely, without condition. In that moment she realized that perhaps love was not about what she could or could not give. It was about the connection she shared with someone who saw her for who she truly was. Over the next several days, Nayeli and Luke continued to spend time together, their bond deepening in ways that neither of them had anticipated. They shared small tasks, collecting firewood, repairing broken tools, tending to animals, and through these activities they learned more about each other's strengths, fears, and hopes. Nayeli discovered that Luke had a gentle humor, a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary with a well-timed joke or a quiet observation. Luke in turn discovered Nayeli's resilience and intelligence, her ability to navigate challenges with a grace and patience that left him quietly in awe. Yet even as their connection grew, challenges remained. Nayeli occasionally withdrew, retreating to the quiet of the plains or her small home, fearful that her limitations might eventually push Luke away. Luke never pressed her, respecting her need for space while subtly reassuring her through small gestures. A hand lightly resting on her shoulder, a basket of fresh bread left at her door, a quiet nod of understanding when words were not needed. These gestures, simple as they were, strengthened the bond between them, reminding Nayeli that Luke's care was consistent, genuine, and unwavering. One evening, as the sky turned shades of deep orange and purple, they sat together by the small stream that ran near the edge of the town. The water reflected the colors of the sunset, shimmering softly in the fading light. Nayeli spoke of her fears and the doubts that had long haunted her. "I have lived my life trying to be strong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But sometimes it feels as though my strength is not enough. That I am missing something important, something that others take for granted." Luke listened without interruption, letting her words flow freely. When she had finished, he spoke softly yet with certainty. "Nayeli, you are not missing anything. You are whole, exactly as you are. Strength is not measured by what you can do physically or by what the world expects of you. Strength is measured by courage, by kindness, and by the ability to keep going even when life is difficult. You have all of that, and more." Nayeli felt a sense of relief, a lifting of the weight that had pressed on her heart for so long. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that she could be loved, not despite her limitations, but alongside them. Luke's words were more than reassurance. They were a promise, a quiet vow that he would see her, accept her, and walk beside her through whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond between them continued to grow, built on trust, understanding, and the shared experience of navigating life's difficulties together. Nayeli began to notice small changes in herself, moments of laughter that felt genuine, a willingness to dream of the future, and a quiet confidence that she had not felt in years. Luke, for his part, learned that love required patience, empathy, and the courage to embrace someone fully, with all their strengths and weaknesses. Together, they discovered that connection was not about perfection but about acceptance, care, and the willingness to walk together through life's uncertainties. By the end of this part of their story, Nayeli and Luke had established a deep and meaningful connection. Their relationship was no longer defined by simple encounters or polite conversation. It was rooted in understanding, trust, and the quiet courage to embrace vulnerability. Nayeli had shared her deepest fear, and Luke had met it with unwavering acceptance. They had begun to build a foundation of love that was not dependent on expectations or societal pressures, but on the genuine bond they shared. A bond that promised resilience, hope, and the possibility of a future defined by mutual respect and care. The days grew warmer as spring deepened, and with the change of seasons, Nayeli and Luke found themselves spending more time together. Their friendship had long moved beyond the boundaries of simple companionship, yet neither had rushed to define it, allowing their bond to grow naturally and without pressure. Every shared task, every quiet walk along the plains, and every conversation in the soft morning light strengthened the trust and understanding between them. For Nayeli, life had begun to feel lighter, and for Luke, each moment spent with her revealed new layers of her strength, intelligence. One evening, after a long day of helping a neighbor mend a fence, Nayeli and Luke walked toward the small hill overlooking the valley. The air was cool, and the sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, the sun sinking slowly behind distant mountains. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with the shared knowledge that neither needed to fill every moment with words. They often walked this path together, letting the vast plains and endless sky remind them of the beauty and vastness of the world and of their small yet meaningful place in it. As they reached the top of the hill, Nayeli stopped and gazed at the horizon. The view always made her heart feel lighter, a small reprieve from the fears that had long weighed on her. She turned to Luke, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "There is something I have wanted to tell you for a long time," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Something about myself that I hope will not make you leave." Luke stopped beside her, looking at her with calm eyes. There was no pressure in his expression, only patience and understanding. "You don't need to fear me, Nayeli," he said gently. "Whatever it is, I will listen." Taking a deep breath, Nayeli spoke the words she had kept hidden for so long. "Luke, I cannot have children. My body, it is too small. I have lived with this for as long as I can remember, and it has made me feel incomplete. I worried that it will make me unworthy of love, that anyone who cares for me will eventually leave when they realize this." The words fell into the quiet evening air, and Nayeli felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. She waited, holding her breath, fearing the reaction she had so often imagined: disappointment, distance, perhaps even rejection. But Luke did not react with fear or discomfort. Instead, he reached out, gently taking her hand in both of his. "Nayali," he said softly, "I have seen your strength. I have seen your courage, and I have seen your heart. You are not defined by what you can or cannot do. You are defined by the kindness, wisdom, and love that you give freely. That is enough." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of relief and gratitude. For the first time, someone had heard her truth without turning away. Luke held her hand firmly, yet tenderly, showing that he accepted her completely, that he was not afraid to share in her vulnerability. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes, a promise of care, trust, and unwavering support. Nayeli felt a small, hesitant smile form on her lips. "Do you really mean that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Luke nodded, his expression steady.
I do. I care for you, Nayeli, not because of what you can give me, but because of who you are.
"And I will not let something like this change that. I am here, and I am not going anywhere." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding and quiet emotion. Nayeli felt a warmth in her heart, a hope she had long thought impossible. For years she had carried the fear that her limitations would make her unlovable, that the world would judge her harshly and leave her isolated. But here, with Luke, that fear began to dissolve. Here she found acceptance, respect, and a love that did not depend on circumstance. After a while, they walked down the hill together, their hands brushing occasionally, the physical connection small but significant. Each step felt lighter, as though the act of sharing her truth had lifted a weight from Nayeli's shoulders. She realized that love could exist even in the presence of fear, that connection could be deeper than societal expectations, and that true partnership was not about fulfilling roles but about walking together through life with understanding and care. In the following days, their relationship began to take on a quiet intimacy. They spent mornings together, working side by side, helping neighbors, tending to animals, and sharing stories from their pasts. Luke never pressured Nayeli, but small gestures, bringing her water when she worked, offering quiet encouragement, listening with genuine interest, reinforced the bond between them. Nayeli in turn felt herself opening up more fully, trusting him with her thoughts, fears, and dreams. Each shared moment became a thread in the tapestry of their growing connection, weaving a pattern of trust, respect, and love. One afternoon, as they rested by the stream near the edge of town, Luke shared a story from his own life, a tale of struggle, loss, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Nayeli listened attentively, realizing that this man too had faced hardships and had chosen to meet them with patience and resilience. She felt a deeper admiration for him, recognizing that his strength was not only in his hands or body, but in his heart and mind. For the first time, Nayeli sensed a true partnership, a relationship where both people brought their full selves with all their strengths and vulnerabilities into the connection. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the water, Nayeli turned to Luke. "I have always believed that my life would be incomplete," she said softly. "But now I see that perhaps it is not about what is missing, but about what we build together. And with you, I feel that we can build something strong, something real."
Luke smiled, squeezing her hand gently.
Yes, Nayeli, that is exactly it.
Life is not about what we lack. It is about how we walk together, how we support and care for one another. And I want to walk with you, no matter what challenges come our way. That evening, they walked home slowly, the sky darkening above them, stars beginning to twinkle in the night. The quiet of the town, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the distant sound of animals settling for the night created a peaceful backdrop for the emotions that had been shared. Nayeli felt a sense of completeness she had never known before, not because of what she could or could not do, but because of the acceptance and love she had found in Luke. Over the next few weeks, their bond continued to grow, strengthened by shared experiences and the quiet understanding that they could trust one another fully. Nayeli began to notice small changes in herself, moments of laughter that felt spontaneous and genuine, a sense of hope for the future, and a growing confidence that she was worthy of love and happiness. Luke, too, realized that their connection was rare and precious. built on patience, empathy, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. Together they discovered that love was not about fulfilling expectations, but about being present, supportive, and authentic. As the season changed toward early summer, the people of the town began to notice the closeness between Naeli and Luke. Their relationship was quiet, marked by small acts of kindness and care rather than public displays of affection. Yet those who observed them could see the mutual respect, trust, and affection that underpinned their bond. Friends and neighbors remarked on the way they worked together seamlessly, how they seemed to anticipate each other's needs, and the quiet strength that radiated from their partnership. Despite the growing attention, Naeli and Luke remained focused on each other, knowing that the world's opinions were not as important as the connection they shared. They continued to walk together along the plains, to share quiet moments by the stream, and to speak openly about their fears, hopes, and dreams. Nayeli felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that she had found someone who truly saw her, accepted her, and valued her for who she was. Luke felt the same, recognizing that their bond was a rare and precious thing, built on patience, understanding, and unwavering care. By the end of this part of the story, the pivotal moment of emotional declaration had transformed their relationship. Nayeli had shared her deepest fear, and Luke had met it with unwavering love and acceptance. Their bond had grown stronger, rooted in trust, respect, and the courage to be vulnerable with one another. Together, they had begun to build a foundation of true partnership, a connection that promised resilience, hope, and a life shared in mutual understanding and care. The days following their quiet declaration of love were filled with a sense of calm and purpose. Naeli and Luke had reached a point where words were often unnecessary. Their connection was built on trust, understanding, and the gentle rhythm of shared life. They moved through the town together, side by side, helping neighbors, tending to animals, and sometimes simply walking the open plains where the sky stretched endlessly above them. Each shared moment reinforced their bond, creating a foundation strong enough to face life's challenges, both seen and unseen. Naeli felt a new sense of freedom in these days. She no longer carried the heavy weight of fear alone. She had learned that her worth was not tied to what she could or could not do, but to the courage, kindness, and resilience she brought into the world. Luke had shown her that true love was about presence, support, and acceptance, not societal expectations or limitations. For the first time, Naeli could imagine a future where she was valued, cared for, and safe to be herself without judgment. One morning they set out early to help repair a neighbor's barn that had suffered damage from a recent storm. The work was demanding, but together they approached it with patience and cooperation. Luke guided Naeli through tasks, offering gentle advice and encouragement, without ever making her feel incapable. Naeli, in turn, surprised herself with the ease and confidence she felt under his guidance. She realized that strength was not only about physical ability, but about trust, determination, and the courage to take steps forward, even when uncertain. As they worked, their conversation drifted naturally to stories of the past, hopes for the future, and dreams that had been tucked away for years. Naeli spoke of her family, her childhood in the plains, and the traditions she held dear. Luke shared memories of his youth, of long days spent learning hard work, and the lessons he had carried into adulthood. These stories were not simply casual conversation. They were threads weaving them closer together, creating a tapestry of shared understanding, empathy, and connection. After a long morning of labor, they paused to rest under the shade of a large oak tree. Luke had brought a small picnic, and they sat side by side, eating quietly, while watching the wind ripple through the tall grasses. Naeli felt a profound sense of peace in these moments, a reassurance that the bond they had nurtured was steady and enduring. She looked at Luke and noticed the quiet contentment in his expression, the way his presence felt as natural as the earth beneath their feet. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky glowed with golden light, Naeli and Luke walked along the stream near the edge of town. The water reflected the colors of the sunset, shimmering softly and creating a serene atmosphere. Naeli spoke of her hopes for the future, of the life she wished to build, and the dreams she had long kept hidden. Luke listened intently, nodding with understanding and offering encouragement, reminding her that the life they envisioned together was possible. not in spite of her fears but alongside them. They began to talk about the idea of partnership more openly. Naeli realized that love was not about perfection or following a prescribed path. It was about shared responsibility, care, and commitment. Luke spoke of building a life together, not defined by traditional expectations but by the values they held dear: respect, honesty, compassion, and unwavering support for one another. Nayeli felt her heart swell with hope. For the first time, she believed that she could truly have a partner who valued her completely and unconditionally. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship became a source of strength not only for themselves but also for the people around them. Neighbors noticed a quiet harmony between them, the way they worked together seamlessly, anticipating each other's needs and offering support without fanfare. Their example inspired others to see that love and partnership could be grounded in mutual respect and understanding, rather than appearances or societal expectations. Nayeli felt proud not because of what she had achieved alone, but because of the partnership she and Luke had created, a bond that allowed them both to flourish. One afternoon, as they returned from helping a local family plant crops for the upcoming season, Nayeli paused and looked at Luke.
I used to believe that life would always feel incomplete, she said softly.
But now I see that completeness is not about what we have or do. It's about who we share our lives with and the care and trust we offer each other.
Luke smiled, taking her hand gently. Yes, Nayeli.
And I am grateful to walk this path with you. You have shown me that love is about presence, understanding, and courage. Together we can face anything life brings. Their relationship grew stronger through small, meaningful acts: gathering firewood together, cooking meals, repairing fences, or simply sitting in silence under the vast sky. Each act, no matter how ordinary, reinforced the deep respect and affection they had for one another. Naeli found joy in these simple moments, realizing that life's richness came not from grand gestures, but from consistency, care, and shared experiences. Luke discovered that true partnership required patience, empathy, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability, and he felt grateful for the trust Nayeli had placed in him. One evening, under a sky scattered with stars, they sat together on a hill overlooking the valley. The gentle night breeze carried the faint scent of wildflowers, and the soft rustling of leaves created a soothing background. Nayeli rested her head on Luke's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of his presence.
I have learned something important, she said quietly. Happiness is not about avoiding fear or challenges.
It is about sharing life with someone who sees you, accepts you, and walks beside you no matter what.
Exactly.
Life is not about perfection. It is about partnership, trust, and love that stands firm through uncertainty. And with you, Nayeli, I have found all of that. As the seasons changed, the bond between Nayeli and Luke only deepened. They faced small challenges, storms that damaged fences, sickness among the animals, and occasional disagreements, but each obstacle strengthened their partnership rather than weakening it. They learned to communicate openly, to listen with patience, and to support one another without expectation. Nayeli realized that love could be resilient, that a true connection was built not on circumstances but on mutual respect, empathy, and shared commitment. Neighbors often commented on the quiet strength of their relationship. They admired the way Nayeli and Luke worked together, the way they treated each other with kindness and patience, and the calm confidence that radiated from their partnership. Nayeli felt a quiet pride, not in showing off what they had, but in knowing that they had built a relationship that could withstand challenges and bring joy and stability to their lives. One sunny morning as they walked along the plains, Nayeli paused and looked out at the wide open landscape. The wind ruffled her hair, and she felt the vastness of the world around her. She turned to Luke and smiled. I used to fear that life would never feel complete, but now I know that completeness is not about what I lack. It is about the connection we share, the care we give, and the life we build together. Luke took her hand, squeezing it gently. Yes, Nayeli, and I promise to walk this path with you, to support you, and to cherish the life we create together. Your presence makes my life full, and I will never take it for granted. By the end of this part of their story, Nayeli and Luke had built a life defined by trust, care, and mutual support. Nayeli had faced her deepest fear and discovered that love could exist fully, even with limitations and doubts. Luke had shown that true partnership requires patience, understanding, and unwavering acceptance. Together, they had created a bond that was strong, enduring, and resilient. A relationship rooted not in expectation or circumstance, but in shared humanity, empathy, and love. The story concluded with a sense of hope and quiet joy. Nayeli and Luke continued to walk together along the plains, facing each day as partners, friends, and companions. Their love was not flashy or dramatic. It was steady, reliable, and profound. In the simple moments of life, shared labor, quiet conversation, and the gentle comfort of presence, they discovered the true meaning of partnership. Life had not been easy for either of them, and challenges would continue to come. But Nayeli and Luke had learned that the strength of their bond, built on trust, empathy, and acceptance, would carry them through. They had found a love that did not depend on circumstance or societal expectation, but on the quiet courage to embrace each other fully, to walk together in all things, and to cherish the shared journey of life. And in that bond they had discovered the most profound sense of completeness, one not measured by what was missing, but by the strength, resilience, and love they shared.